values and lessons for my children, I would say discipline. I mean, if you commit to something, then we gonna do it. I don't give my children easy ways out. If you say you're gonna do it, for example, we were in the mix. This was 2 years ago, trying to teach my son how to read. He would get so frustrated. But I don't care if if we got a mission. And we have to be successful within this mission because this is my responsibility to make sure that you're equipped with the appropriate skills, right?
Right.
So the discipline is you get upset, you get mad. You know how it is. You get upset, you get mad. I don't care. This is what we're doing. So from a discipline perspective, it's not so much of me being a disciplinarian. It's about if we do something, we're gonna see it through.
Welcome to Be a Baller, where we're building a lifelong legacy for our families, communities, and the world. Your host, Coach Tim Brown, is excited for you to join him on this journey. On each episode, we'll be talking about how to be intentional about building a lasting legacy. We'll be exploring what it means to leave a mark that goes beyond just our lives, but has a positive impact on those around us and even generations to come. So, if you're looking for inspiration, guidance, and practical tips on how to build a lasting legacy that makes a difference, then you're in the right place. So grab your earbuds, get comfortable, and let's dive in. It's time to be a baller.
Welcome to Be a Baller Podcast. This is our Fatherhood series. I'm your host, Coach Tim Brown, and I'm blessed to have in the studio today a young man, a family member, who's an example of a godly family man leading his family. Chad Wise is a dedicated husband, proud father of two, been married for 12 years.
12 years.
An accomplished sales leader with over 15 years of experience in pharmaceutical industry. Outside of work, Chad is deeply committed to his family. He has a priority of being active, present father, and creating meaningful memories at home. Whether it's the weekend adventures or weekend dinners, Chad enjoys spending quality time with his wife and kids, and he loves to cook.
Yeah.
Often bringing family together around the table, making some meals from scratch.
Yeah.
Chad, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got to get into this cooking first before we get anything else. Where'd all that come from?
I think it all started with my grandmother. She was an amazing cook, right? And there were certain things that I just loved that she used to make. She used to fry some fish that was unbelievable. My dad would go catch the fish and bring it to her.
Right.
And it all started with that. And then as a young man, my father taught me how to make breakfast. Because that was his main meal for the day.
Yeah.
So and I took it and ran with it. My mother's taught me a ton about cooking.
Right.
And now it relaxes me and I enjoy eating the food.
Yeah. Now the kids, they get in the kitchen with you.
I'm
watching.
My CJ, my son, he is starting to be more curious.
Okay.
The other day we pulled out the toaster and I'm like, look, man, this is how you make your own toast. Right. And he was excited about that. So
watching it pop up,
right. And get the butter knife, put the butter on, get your jelly, all of that. So that's
big.
He's curious.
Yeah, that's big. That's big for a young fella, man. Just seeing that. That's magic.
It is.
I've been blessed to watch you grow up from Franklin Middle School to Brookhaven High School and Ohio State. Can you talk about your childhood and that helped you become the man you are today?
Yeah. So, I would say that I'm very fortunate in my upbringing. Come from a 2-parent household, very, very involved parents, grandparents on both sides, extremely involved. Academics was always a priority for my family. And I could say that for our entire family from a macro perspective as well. So just the qualities that I was able to see with my granddad, the hard work I was able to see with my father and my mother putting in, and, being rewarded for succeeding in academics. We were always good athletes, but we seem to be granted more opportunities at home based off of how well we did in school. So, just fortunate to have some good people in my life.
You were a part of that Kids Speak, and you were married for a day. Can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, it was actually
married for a day.
It was actually for a year.
For a year?
Yeah.
Oh, man, you showed a year term, huh?
Yeah, it was interesting. There was when I was at Franklin Middle School, there was a competition where you submitted an essay,
Wow.
and you got to be the Kid Speak mayor for a year.
Wow.
Mayor LaShutka was in at the time.
Yeah.
And I submitted this essay and really didn't have a huge expectation around if I would get chose or not.
Right.
And I ended up getting chose to be the Kid Speak mayor. So I was able to do a lot of different things. I spoke at the Martin Luther King breakfast, went on multiple trips where I could shadow the mayor, was able to attend certain meetings that and kind of get a look behind the curtain where most kids in, I believe, 7th grade at the time, going into 8th grade, didn't have that opportunity. So it was great. Yeah.
Now, did the family call you mayor?
We have little jokes. You know everybody. And I say some names. You would know exactly who I'm talking about. That did have some jokes, but
they did.
You know
they did.
Yeah, so there was some jokes around there.
You're part of the Wise and Fields family. Can you talk about the importance of the family name?
Yeah, the family name. The family is everything. We come from something that is so amazing, that's so profound, it's so great that we've had so many examples of how to be men, how to be better leaders. I position my entire career based off of what my older cousins, who I would look at some of them as like older uncles, right? And the examples that I saw when I was in high school, college, I wanted to be like them, right? And I think that's what the Fields family and the Wise family as well. My uncle that has since passed away. I wanted to be like him. I saw how he would travel for work, get on airplanes. He's in this place, he's in that place, and I look at all of that, Tim, and I'm in the same spot. Right. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I'm in that position. This was something that was intentional. Right. And I think we as a family, we are very intentional about the things we do and the examples that we try to set for each other.
No, that's good. You can't be what you can't see, seeing that. And this is it. This is what I want to do.
100%.
You had and still have a special relationship. I know your dad has passed, but with your grandfather and dad. Can you talk about the lessons you learned from these men that you apply today as a father?
Yeah, as a father. So my dad was a great guy, right? But discipline was always first, and it's the same way with my grandfather. Love you to death, right? Tell you how good you are, but it was always having a system in place, like a strategy to follow, whether it be something basic as cutting the grass the right way, making sure the lines are how they're supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
My grandfather could fix anything, right? Yeah. So, and just being able, I don't have that same.
Right.
But just being able to watch the discipline behind everything that he did, the precision behind everything that they did, right? I think it definitely put me in a spot where I'm able to do the same thing with my children, right? There's a guy that when I grew up, he said, "You play the game how you live your life." Right? Or you live your life how you play the game, however you want to look at it. And it's true. You do everything how you do everything. Right. And I try to instill that in my children and even in my household as well, is that there's got to be structure. Right. We can have a great time, but there's got to be structure. You got to be committed and you got to work hard.
Well, we sure have lost that one, Jack. Yeah. I mean, that one went out the window.
Trying to keep it there.
Got to keep it there. Yeah. And then it's about excellence as well.
Absolutely.
Doing things not just any kind of way.
Yep.
We're about excellence. Yep. Doing things in an excellent way. If there was one question you could ask those men, what would it be?
If it was one question that I could ask them, I don't know if it would be more so a question. It would be more so just gratitude, it would be more so coming from a position of thankfulness, right?
Yeah.
With my granddad, maybe the question that I would ask him with the time that he's 93 years old, right? So he came up in a different time than any of us did, right? So the perseverance, like how did you keep going, would probably be the question to ask him. And I look at him now, and you can tell that there was a lot of struggle that he dealt with, but he always kept a smile on his face, right? So that would probably be the one thing, thinking about when the way that he came up, like how did you push through all the challenges that we face, right?
That's good. That's good. Your life is grounded in faith, family, and purpose. How do these pillars guide your decisions and actions, both at home and in the workplace?
Yeah, I'm a praying man. I'll say that first and foremost. Everything for me starts with prayer. Over the years, I've had to, there's been situations in my life where I may not have been the most praying man, but I understand that everything starts with the Most High. So all the decisions that I make, even small things now, I gotta run it by him to make sure that I'm making the right choice. So my faith, my church life, reading the Bible every night with my kids, you know what I mean? Sharing that with them, that's really, really important to me. And I would say, before all the success and all the great things that have happened for us, that's number one.
That's good. How has fatherhood influenced your personal growth and perspective in life?
Man, fatherhood. Fatherhood is such an amazing thing, because you have these human beings that you're tasked with making sure that they have a good life and everything that they need in order to be successful. I've given myself some grace, right? Because you don't know what to do until you're in that situation. But I think the key to that is, the people that brought me up, right? So I have such a strong example to lean on. I have people that I can call to run things by and make sure that I'm doing things the appropriate way. So, but fatherhood has completely changed me. I've become more patient. I've had to. I've become more patient. I've also, it's interesting, an 8 and a 5-year-old, I've become a much better listener. So I think fatherhood has taught me patience, and I need to, even though they're 8 and 5, I still need to listen and see their perspective and what they're thinking, what they're feeling.
Now, what are they thinking?
That's crazy, right? That's the most interesting part about it, is because what are they thinking?
What are you thinking?
Yeah, what are you thinking
about?
What were you thinking when you did that? Yeah. It's always, especially CJ, it's always some dynamic story about what he wasn't thinking.
Right. Yeah. That's funny. You prioritize being an active, present father.
Yeah.
Can you share some intentional practices or routines you have for your children that strengthen your bond with them?
Absolutely. Every single morning, I take my son to school. Probably 80% of the time I travel for work. So when I'm in town, I try to make sure that I'm taking my son to school. It's tough to take my daughter to school at times because of her schedule. On the way to school, we open up the Bible app. We read that scripture of the day, and we take turns praying every day. If I'm out of town, call my wife. You in the car with CJ? Let's say a prayer. Let's talk about your day, right? So that's one thing. In the evening, same routine. I don't get to do the prayer when my daughter going to school. In the evening, we got a real good children's Bible. We read. We take turns. My wife, daughter, son, me. We take turns praying every single night, right? That routine, out of everything that we do, is probably the most important routine, because you know how it is. You wanna instill faith in who the Most High is with your children from a young age. So it usually sticks with them. If they leave, they always come back.
Right. Yeah, the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go.
Yeah.
When they're old, they won't depart. And that training is on us.
Yep.
God has challenged us to do that. And we're not counting on anybody else, because
Nope.
these are our children. These are the ones that God has given us for that. How do you balance a demanding career with family life that can be challenging? What strategies do you employ to ensure that you spend that quality time with your wife and kids?
Like I said to him, like I'm walking in here, I'm on conference calls nonstop all day long. I'm gone 1 to 2 nights a week. I try to, I'm a all in husband. I'm an all in father. And what I mean by that is, from the moment if I'm around, I'm involved. Whether it's the commitment that we have to sports, whether it's we do our homework every single day together. You know what I mean? And the crazy thing, and I know they get tired of this, even when I'm not here, I still try to have my hand on top of it,
right.
to make sure that things are getting done when I'm not present. So me being all in, I think, takes away some of the challenges or some of the cloudiness in my mind that I may have. Just be all in. Just be present. Just communicate. Put the phone down. Stop scrolling. Let's talk. Let's play. Let's whatever.
Right.
So.
Right. I'm glad you're young with a lot of energy.
Man, I ain't young no more.
And we talked about this cooking, which you like to do, bringing all the family together. Yeah. How does that tradition contribute to your family's connections and values?
Yeah, it brings us together. It brings us together. We break bread together. It allows us we have a unique situation where my mother, my sister, my brother-in-law, they built a house directly next door to us, right? Nice. So food is the way that we get together, talk about our days, talk about challenges, what's going on in our lives, or maybe just have a good time. Yeah. Right. So it just so happens it's something that I like to do. Right. And something that I don't mind doing. Right. And it's more of something that just brings us together.
That's awesome. As a father, what values or lessons are most important for you to impart to your children?
Values and lessons for my children, I would say discipline.
Speak on that, because when they think discipline, they think they think a certain way of disciplining the child in a negative sense.
Yeah. And so I think of it in a completely different way. Yeah. When I say discipline, I mean if you commit to something, then we gonna do it. I think that's I don't give my children easy ways out. If you say you're gonna do it, for example, we were in the mix. This was 2 years ago, trying to teach my son how to read. He would get so frustrated. But I don't care if if we got a mission and we have to be successful within this mission, because this is my responsibility to make sure that you're equipped with the appropriate skills. Right. So the discipline is, you get upset, you get mad. You know how it is. You get upset, you get mad. I don't care. This is what we're doing. So from a discipline perspective, it's not so much of me being a disciplinarian. It's about, if we do something, we're gonna see it through. Right.
That's good. In your role as president of the National Sales Network, the Ohio chapter, how did that come about?
And this is common. I've been in med device, diagnostics, pharmaceutical sales for probably the last 15 to 20 years. It's crazy to say that. And I it's always been a challenge at times for people that look like us to gain access to some of these high level opportunities. Right. And I've seen that over the course of the last 20 years or so. So with the National Sales Network, I looked at that. I was afforded my opportunity with Abbott through the National Sales Network, right? So if it wasn't for the National Sales Network, there's a chance that I may not be working at Abbott right now. So I'm very passionate about it because it gave me the opportunity of a lifetime, right? Where I'm in a position now that, all my positions matter before, but I'm really driving results. I'm really... I'm in the mix right now, right? So with the National Sales Network, my number one priority is to make sure that we are giving people opportunities at positions that I know that they're qualified for. And I know that they can go be successful at, be great at, win awards, and do all the things that I've been able to do, right? So I take pride in it. It's something that I care about. And fortunately, the organization I work with cares about it also. So that makes it sweet.
Win-win.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. Yeah, Jordan Miller, who's a Adolfo Bank, he was here in the studio, and Jordan said this. You know, a guy said they want to have a mentors, you know, how important a mentor is. But Jordan said a mentor is good, but you got to have a sponsor.
Yeah.
And that's the level you're at now because you're in the room.
Yep.
You're in the room as that sponsor. Yep. Oh, give this guy a chance. Give him an opportunity, you know. And we got to have those sponsors, you know, in the room, in those spaces where decisions are being made.
100%.
It's a blessing that you're there. You know, and when you think about those, how do you integrate lessons from fatherhood into your leadership style?
Yeah. That's interesting. I think what I said earlier as far as patience and being a good listener, I go back to that because I have an entire executive team that I'm responsible for. I'm moving the chapter forward. I have to be open to hearing them out, just like I have to be open as a father to listening to my children, open as a husband to listening to my wife. I use that same skill set to be more gracious with people. Like I said, give people more grace, right? And you know, the thing about fatherhood, you quickly learn that you don't know it all. And when you don't know it all, it's good to have people around you that may know different things than you do. And I've been able to use that same thought process by surrounding myself with elite leaders that I feel amazing. I feel so confident when I go to them and ask them a question. Well, what do you think we should do? Right. So those same listening skills and patience and that I have with my children, I have to use that in my career and you know, especially with my running the chapter.
You know, I'm listening to you, watching you, the serious Chad. What loosens you up?
What loosens me up?
What's that fun side? What's that fun side? Yeah.
I love music. I listen to a variety of music. Anybody that knows me personally knows that if you come in my house,
right,
I'm very prideful about the music that I have playing.
Right.
You know what loosens me up?
What's one of them songs?
What's one of them songs?
Give me that one.
It really depends.
Okay.
It could be anything. Lately I've been diving deep in more jazz. My dad was a big jazz guy, you know, so I've been diving into that a lot more. So going to with my children, I want to make sure I play the right music when they're in the car. We've created a whole hip hop gospel playlist.
Right.
Where you know what I mean? When my son gets in the car, my daughter, Dad, can you turn our music on? Right. So it all depends. But music, obviously I'm running around a lot, and some days ain't nothing better than just to sit on the couch. We ain't got no practices. I'm not flying out nowhere tomorrow.
Right.
So that's kind of the things that kind of
good. You know, as you look ahead in your life, going a little fast forward, what legacy do you hope to leave for your children and the community you serve?
Yeah. The legacy I want to leave for my children, I want to make sure that my children have a foundation. Same way I had a foundation built, whether that's financial, whether that's just understanding what real love looks like from a parent, right? You know, my grandmother, so crazy. She set aside money for my sister and I for when we got college scholarships, but it was tuition only for our scholarship.
Right.
Still had to buy books.
Right.
She set aside money where our books were paid for in college, you know? So that's a legacy something that she imparted on me where it's like, all right, I got to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So whether it's financial, whether it's from a leadership perspective, whether it's just, hey, my dad was there. You know, my dad was always around. You know, my dad showed me God or whatever it is. That legacy, I just want it to be a positive one. And, you know, you always say it, I hope my kids can appreciate one day what it is that my wife and I are doing for them. So,
Do you think about this? As we talk about legacy, What advice would you give to a younger dad, to some of these younger dads who are right in the middle of all this, just like you are?
Yeah. I would tell them to embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell them to grab it with both hands. Mm-hmm. I would tell them to dive as deep in as they possibly can. Don't run when things get challenging. Don't, give yourself some grace when you may make mistakes with your children or your family or whatever it is. But more importantly, embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many dads that have kids that are adults now.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing that they tell me is it goes by so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's going to go by fast, I'm going to make sure I'm involved in every moment of it. So I would tell all fathers, whether, if you live in the house with kids, if you don't, whatever it is, embrace it and be as involved and in their face as much as you possibly can.
Right. Enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride.
Last, as we wrap up, there's some men out there who didn't have those models.
Yep.
Didn't have that dad, that grandfathers you talked about. And I know you come across a lot of those young men who are in that space. What would you say? What would you say to them?
I would tell them that it's the number one thing. So here's the thing, like for men, and what happens to me, I see I meet a lot of successful men that haven't had that.
Okay.
And then they feel like that they're missing certain pieces of. Surround yourself with the people that you want to be most like. That could be a mentor, it could be friends, it could be whomever, right? I welcome everyone in to my circle. I'm not. People see different things in me that I may not see in myself. So if you're someone out there that didn't have the fortunate situations that I've been blessed with, it's okay. There's still people out there that can assist you along the way. There's still men out there who don't know, just like you don't know, right? That may feel ashamed that they don't know. But there are people out there that will open up to you and make you feel comfortable about questions that you may have about being a father, about being a husband, right? So it's so critical. It's so important. It's so important. What they say, birds of a feather flock together.
Yes.
It's real. Show what they say, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. It's real. So if you're missing something, if you feel like you missed out on something, it ain't too late. There's somebody out there that like myself, would love to share with you, mentor you, talk to you if I can, right? So don't be afraid to do that.
Oh, that's good. Well, Chad, I want to thank you for being a guest on today's show, and I knew this would be a good episode about fatherhood because I want to get some young dads, who are right in the middle of it. I got some other guys coming now. You just don't know, but just your wisdom, and encouragement too. And I want to tell you this: how proud your dad and grandfather and just the men in your life, proud of you and what you've accomplished thus far, and just your example and your model for others. And I love when you spoke about discipline, how important that is. And sometimes I always tell men that, I used to tell my boys, I'm not trying to be your friend. You got plenty of friends, I'm your father. And I'm going to tell you some things that your friends ain't going to tell you.
Absolutely.
And that's our role. And they may not like it or whatnot, but I just want, so when they get back in life, later on in life, what you're saying, they'll appreciate it, or at least they can't say they don't know.
Yep.
You're not going to say that. You heard it. Now you have a choice, just like God gives us choices. And so I thank you for standing your ground.
Yeah.
And lastly, I want to thank you for not just being a good father, but being a good husband.
Yeah.
How important that is.
Absolutely.
How important that is. And I see your bride and I see the smile. You can tell a lot about a man by looking at his wife.
Yeah.
If the wife is happy, smile, that man's doing a good job.
Yeah,
and that's what it's all about. That's what it's at the end of the day. That's what it's all about. Because as men, we know the children will grow older and they're going to have their own families, I always say this, the kids are going to go because the kids, they're grown. My kids are grown now and left out, but the wife stays.
Yeah.
The kids are going to go, but the wife stays, And so that's a blessing in that. But I want to thank you for being a part of our show today. And for our listeners, be sure to subscribe to Be a Baller podcast and share with others. And we'll continue this Fatherhood series next week. So thanks, Chaz, for being on the show.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with family and friends. The Be a Baller podcast is available on all major podcast platforms. This podcast was created by Coach Tim Brown and recorded and edited by the video production class of Worthington Christian High School. Be sure to come back next week as we continue to discuss on how to build a lifelong legacy. Until then, don't forget to be a baller.